You know, we got to talk about something that just recently happened. Kamala Harris had a sit down. Okay, look. I'm going to try and keep this as neutral as possible. Okay, I'm going to keep all emotions and all that stuff out of the way. However, the facts are still the facts. And I'm sorry to say what we're going to say makes no sense to us, but we can understand why it makes sense to Kamala Harris. Now that I have my disclaimer out the way. She sat down for an interview with a podcast called Call Her Daddy. Now, I'm going to talk about the podcast first before we talk about Kamala's role in it. She had to sit down, and this particular podcast deals with a lot of interactions between male and females in a specific room in the house when they're either married or fornicating. Okay? All of their content is around that. How to do it, the best way to do it, best results to get, what your man gonna like, what you get the picture. Okay, so this is not one of those wholesome family shows where you can just take the kids to listen to, because more than likely they're going to be talking about stuff that should normally get people arrested for speaking about it in front of kids. Well, Miss Kamala decided to go sit down with them. Why did she go sit down with them? Her answer was because they're so relatable. Now, I understand. People might say, but how is that relatable? Please understand that while for the majority of us, the concept of morality is easy to spot and easy to follow, that may not be the case for many others, okay? And the folks that support Kamala Harris do not see these particular types of podcasts as problematic, nor do they see them as immoral. In fact, they see them as something that you would love to talk about, and you can identify with the current culture through them. So Kamala decided to do that. Now, I believe there's a second reason why she did it. I think, and this is just me, I think she did it because it's a familiar territory, if you get my drift. I think that podcast talks about all the stuff that she also did to get to where she got to, which is why she felt it being comfortable enough to sit down and have a conversation with them. Now, the biggest topic that they had to talk about, if you didn't guess it, was abortion. I'm not going to call it women's reproductive rights because it's not reproductive if you're ending reproduction. You get me? So it's not about women's reproductive. It should be called the end of women's reproductive rights. Let's call it that. That's what they were singing, and their praises about was women's right to choose and their ability to body autonomy and blibbity blobbity blue. About more than half of the podcast was built around that conversation.
And there are now 20 states with Trump abortion bans, including bans that make no exception for rape or incest, which we just discussed.
The more egregious part of this conversation was the fact that she was sitting down with these people. Now, Corey and I had a discussion, and he brought up a very interesting point. And I'm going to leave this for y'all to discuss and see whether or not it made sense. It made a lot of sense to me. We may look at this move by Kamala as idiotic. We may look at it as, wow, how could she? Ask yourself this question. Why wouldn't she? This is her wheelhouse. This is what she likes. This is who she is. Why would she not sit down with these people? If what you believe about Kamala Harris is true, that keeps you from voting for her, why is it so far-fetched for you to believe that this was intentionally picked because of the type of people that she was interviewing with? Now, the other thing we talked about was, why isn't it so accessible to Donald Trump? Why aren't smaller podcasts or podcasts that people may not see as large, why wouldn't he go on them to relate to the normal lay people? Now, I don't know the answer to that. Corey didn't know the answer to that. It would be wise for him to do it, but at the same time, is it because he would be too accessible as president? What is it? But if you're pushing yourself as the, for the people person, then maybe be for the people. I don't know. I would love to have an answer from Mr. Trump myself, if that would be possible, but we never know. But back to Miss Harris, this is why she's doing it. It may seem nonsensical to us, but she's actually, and this, y'all might be thinking I'm giving her a compliment. She's doing more at this point than Trump did. What do I mean? For her base, she is being approachable. You get what I'm saying? For her base and the people that will naturally vote for her, they will see that as her coming down to their level. Not necessarily in perversion, it's that aspect too, but I'm talking about talking to a podcast that would not normally constitute a political one. Yes, I've known that Mr. Trump has been on a few others, but majority of them are big podcasts with massive reach, and I understand why. I do. But at the same time, you got to understand one very important thing, that there are people out there that want to feel included. And the unfortunate thing in this situation is that she's doing a better job. No, don't throw stones at me now. Don't be hitting me. I'm not supporting Kamala Harris. I'm just telling you that for what her aim and her goal and what her belief structure is, she's approaching it on that level. We just wish that it was the same on the other side of the ticket. And maybe it'll get there. We still got about 31 days left, 30 days left. So it could possibly happen. I don't foresee it, but it could. But the other question is, does he need it? No, he doesn't need it. It would be nice to try and bring down his little conversational things that he does in public a little bit. That'd be nice. But at the end of the day, we can't control what the man does. But when it comes to Kamala Harris, let's just be honest about one thing. There is no way she's going to win people over speaking politically. Okay? And I think even Kamala Harris people can admit this. She's not going to win people over by speaking policy, which is why she doesn't speak policy. But what she can win people over with is speaking emotionality. And that's exactly what everything else tackles. This particular podcast has to do with what? Feelings in the bedroom. She goes on to a podcast that deals with feelings to speak about the results of playing around in the bedroom and how it's a woman's choice to do whatever she wants to do after that point. She is doing exactly what her platform is, and she's doing it well. Will it gain her any more votes? Don't know. But it will gain her popularity, whether it's negative or positive, it still will get her some popularity, and it could possibly swing some votes her way. It could. I think we can be at least frank and honest about this much. Whether we like the lady's speech patterns, how she talks, who she is, whether we like that or not, when it comes down to warfare, and it's political warfare this time, when it comes down to warfare, you have to understand one very important thing. You play to win the game, and she is playing to win. The other side, I'm unfortunately going to say this, may believe that they already have it won. And this is what happened already before. When we thought that, we start to slack. Just warning you, Kamala ain't slacking because she's afraid of losing. Maybe if we were afraid of losing, we'd put more pedal to the metal. Just maybe. Don't know. Don't know. But at this point, I can't dog the lady for trying this hard. I can't. We can't say to ourselves on one, she doesn't do any interviews. And when she does do more interviews, we get mad at the fact that she's doing a type of interview. It's still an interview. And it's to the line that will make the most sense to her party. You understand now? She's not going to go before the news. There's nothing to be gained there. She's not going to go before a massive political podcast. She's going to go for where her base is, which is all social based, emotional based, what I want for myself based. You get it? So in some ways, she's really doing a good job. In other ways, she's showing exactly who she is. And that is where our job comes in. I'm talking about conservatives and people who believe God and want to see the best for it. This is where we come in. I think instead of going after her policies, since we don't really know it, we have to start understanding that this is a moral war. It's a moral war. Either we want our kids to grow up in an environment where they're bombarded by sexual imagery day in, day out, or we don't. And if we don't, we know who to go to. God, right? Yes. And let him deal with the rest of it. But this Kamala Harris situation with this sit down, at first it troubled me. It did. It troubled me immensely. How could you sit down with these women talking like that? But then I thought, wait a minute, it's Kamala Harris. She's familiar. This is her bread and butter. This is her wheelhouse. So she felt comfortable there. And the majority of people that like her feel comfortable there too. So kudos to you, Kamala. You did good. You did your job. You performed admirably in front of your crowd. The unfortunate thing for you, though, is this: the crowd you're functioning in. How's the nicest way to say this? May not be as functionable as you might think. And that's the good thing for us, is that they're not that functionable. But at the end of this day, and I mean today, I think you'll see more people, and this is the unfortunate truth, you're going to see more people commend her for doing that than you will see degrading her, because she is doing something that Donald Trump has yet to do. What is that? Talk to the people that are on the lower levels that seem to have the messaging that he wants to push. And until he does that, I'm afraid for this next election and him.